Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video. I was a bit bored, so I thought I'd make a video. I covered this on my Facebook, but I can't remember if I covered it on my YouTube or not, or these sorts of ideas. But I thought of some ideas I would cover for an Italian football team called Juventus. Now, for any people who watch my channel, if anyone does watch the channel out there, this is specifically for football, so I suppose it won't probably be of interest to those who are not into football. But I've often said I'd love to talk about football in a way in which it would interest people who are not into football. I'd love to work with FIFA, the governing body of football, to get more people into football, for instance, and do lots of charitable projects with them and their foundation, and talk about ideas for charity and how to make the world a better place for football, how to improve the reputation of football, and also UEFA. I mean, because I think football has lost a lot of its has got a bad reputation in some ways amongst some because of the things like hooliganism, corruption that's happened in the game, including with Juventus, unfortunately, in the past, and FIFA itself, and possibly Italian football as well, unfortunately. And also with all the money that is in football, I think it's got a bad rep. So I think Juventus and other clubs in Italy, and Celtic as well, and the Italian national team and the FA in Italy, and maybe in politicians in Italy as well, and Celtic politicians perhaps could work together with FIFA and UEFA and others, and charities and NGOs included, to make football have a better reputation, improve and enhance its reputation, be what Pele called the beautiful game. I think it'd be great if football could do a lot of good stuff, which arguably it does, and maybe that needs to be talked about more, even shouted about more, along with the bad stuff, like how to kick out hooliganism and corruption, crimes, criminality, and that kind of thing, and look at how footballers can be better role models. For instance, as a fan of Italian football and Celtic, I would especially love that for Italian teams and Celtic, perhaps to an extent as well. Footballers going into schools and things like that. So anyway, yeah. So I'd love to get people who are not into football, and also as they work with FIFA and UEFA and all that kind of thing. And these videos are about my dyslexic creativity and that sort of thing as well. I suppose I'd love to make videos as well as Giuseppe, who makes J Just Juve, and I think shout out to his channel. I think he does a good job, and other football YouTubers like Mark Goldbridge and people like that. I wish I could speak as coherently as them and as well and articulately, and not stumble on my words too much or whatever. But anyway, I suppose I do the best I can. So sorry, you're stuck with me on this channel. But yeah, I do appreciate all your support. Anyway, I'm going to try and crack on with the list of my goals and ideas and that kind of thing as I do. And again, I'd love to receive your support. Whether you're in football or not, I'd really appreciate your support. But obviously, this is more geared towards football, and in particular, Juventus, and that kind of thing. So yeah, so here goes. So number one, as the title suggests, a new Juventus. I thought the name Juventus. I suppose some people pronounce it Juve with that, so it's pronounced as in you rather than Juventus. But I thought it'd be quite cool if it was like NEWventus, as in a new Juventus. I think it has sort of a ring to it, and the fact that it rhymes, like new Juventus or whatever, perhaps. I think, but yeah, I'd love to see Juventus change, because I think that a lot of things in Juventus, like the corruption that's happened in the past, and also recent scandals which have happened, like financial scandals, I think it'd be good if the club cleaned up its image and reputation, looked at how it can always operate within the law, international laws and things like that, as much as possible wherever it operates, always be within the law, discourage hooliganism. Again, I think it'd be great if Juventus I think it'd be quite an interesting irony as well if they worked with FIFA and UEFA to tackle corruption, and have an office in Turin, where Juventus is obviously based. For those who might have stumbled across this video but don't really know much about it, again, I'd love to get people who are not into football. But yeah, if they had their own base in Turin, which looked at how to tackle corruption, crime, criminality, and that kind of thing in football, and make those changes. So yeah, it'd be interesting if Juventus, who had that reputation, or have got a reputation amongst many in football of being corrupt or whatever. I think it'd be interesting if they had actually had anti-corruption groups, although some might say it would take a while for them to get that trust back, perhaps. But it would be great if they tackled corruption and worked with FIFA, who also have a bad reputation for being corrupt sometimes, or a lot of time. So yeah, if they did football for good, tackled corruption, tackled crime and all that kind of thing, I think it'd be cool. Number two, I hope they'll learn all they can from other clubs and how to improve and that sort of thing. And again, work with FIFA, UEFA, Celtic, and also other Italian teams as well. So to again tackle corruption and look at what they can do to make a beautiful game beautiful again. Like so, it's like tackling corruption and tackling poverty through football and doing lots of good stuff. I think it'd be great if they learned about doing that sort of stuff again, working with charities, NGOs, foundations, and things like that. I mentioned on my YouTube a while back. On Facebook Live a while back when I made videos on there, which I often do. I made a similar one for Juventus, and someone said you should do more research. So apologies for not doing as much research again, but I think it'd be interesting. I got to admit, I don't know. Basically, it's what I'm referring to, whether the club has its own foundation or not. So I think if it doesn't, it should probably have its own foundation. That would be pretty cool. And I often say like 10% of whatever revenue the club gets could be donated to charity. And I'd love for Italian football teams to be tax exempt, which brings me to point number 3. I would love for them to be tax exempt and also to give away free merchandise to people from poor and disadvantaged backgrounds, which I often say will be a mutual benefit, hopefully, because more people would hopefully would come to support the club, which I hope will raise its brand value and mean that the club gets more money, which it can spend on buying better players and academies, building academies and things like that. Number 4, I would love for, on that note, actually to fundraise for Italian teams generally, not just Juventus, but Juventus as well, and Celtic. Also to have football academies. As I say, I'd love for Glasgow Celtic to network with Italian teams and vice versa. And I would love to fundraise for them to have as many academies as possible. And with Juventus's name meaning youth in English from Latin, again, I probably mentioned that quite a while back, but for those who might not have seen those videos or remember, with Juventus apparently meaning youth in English from the Latin, of course, I think it'd be cool if they developed. I think they should do as much as they can to develop as many football academies, which I hope will mean that they would produce and develop many great players, including Italian players, especially, which would also benefit the national team, as I often mention. And I think that it'd be great if Juventus players, like especially midfielders and strikers, were taught to be able to make mistakes and not worry about making mistakes. So they try different skills and tricks. I do wonder how many of these ideas I should share in case teams from other countries or clubs find out about these ideas. But teams from other countries, because I'd love to benefit Italian teams and Celtic. But I think it'd be great if the midfielders and the strikers were allowed to trial and error. So if they make mistakes, the coaches don't shout at them too much if they try a trick or skill and it doesn't work. So they can develop more skillful players, which again I hope will build a fan base around the world. Goalkeepers perhaps shouldn't make so many mistakes, or defenders. I hope Juventus will also develop good players all across the pitch and work together as a team, always putting 100%. Which I think that should be the ethos of anyone who plays for Juventus, as well as any other Italian team and also Celtic. You always put in 100% and work for the best of the team and for the best of the fans and the club itself and what it stands for and things like that. And I also hope the club itself will stand against crime and corruption, as I say, and these will be some of the things they stand for. I'm saying that because it's point number 4. And so due to my patterns, I'm including that in point number 4. But I think it'd be great if the club stood for teamwork, always putting in what's best for the club, avoiding crime at all costs, tackling corruption. Again, I think that'd be quite ironic. I'm not sure if it would take a while for other people to believe that Juventus are tackling corruption, but I do hope they will do so. Number 5, I was thinking of the name Juventus. It's how I suppose it's pronounced Juventus, but I think if it was like Juventus, and the fact that it begins with J, it would be good if it was co-owned by members of the Jewish community and Jewish business people and that kind of thing. And given that they also play in black and white, I think it'd be great, as I've mentioned again in the past, that if Juventus tackled discrimination of all kinds, discrimination against those of African descent or black people, discrimination against Asians, or any other discrimination, I think it'd be great if they tackled those discriminations as much as possible. Talked about a club being for all, being equal, and anyone who obeys the law and always does their best for the team, and hiring the best quality players, not those based on their background, if that makes sense. But I do hope they'll develop a lot of young, good Italian players who get to practice and train. And I'd love to have as many academies as possible. Number 6, again, I'd love to have as many academies as possible, 5-a-side, 6-a-side, 7-a-side, 11-a-side, 12-a-side, or whatever. And yeah, as I say, as many academies as possible, which will train the youth. So hopefully developing the game in Turin and in Italy for both the benefit of Juventus and the national team in this case as well. Number 7, I dream that they'll work with Celtic as closely as possible and share ideas and network together, as I say, as I wish for all Italian teams. But again, have 7-a-side pitches and train at youth level, especially. Number 8, I dream that they will, again, that they'll tackle corruption. They'll tackle corruption, but also discrimination, football hooliganism, hatred, violence, nationalism, and all forms of prejudice. So yeah, so it'd be great, I think, if like even African sovereign wealth funds, African entrepreneurs, and also like members of the Jewish community and even Arabic community, maybe even Muslim community, or even other groups as well, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and whatever other backgrounds, atheists obviously, or Buddhists, or any other backgrounds, like invested in the club and like work together. So that would be symbolic, I think, hopefully as well. I suppose from a selfish point of view, I would want it to benefit the club itself and Italian football generally. As a fan of Italian football, so I'd want it to be more money coming into the club, so they could buy better players and also invest in the academies and other things that make a football club great, buying the best possible players in all possible positions, actually developing the academies, and also and I say any other costs that would help the club to be as successful as possible on the pitch. But also I think it'd be symbolic as they play in black and white, and it's like, I think like Juventus, Jews for Juventus, and things like that would mean that they tackle discrimination symbolically. So I get to the point. Symbolically, it would show that Muslims, Jewish people, Christians, and other groups could work together, and also Arabs and Jewish people could work together, perhaps in some cases, or put their differences aside. Again, as ever, I'd love to hear what people think or read what people think, hopefully as politely as possible, on each of these points that I make. As I put in the comment section, like, I'd love to know what people think about football generally, especially Italian football, or soccer for any Americans or Australians out there, and Juventus and Celtic. I'd love to read your comments about what you think about these things, and I hope people won't be too harsh in the comments. But again, or each idea I have, or each points I have, and things like that, and you believe Juventus could do a lot for good, and what do you think the club should stand for, especially if you're a Juventus fan, or what do you think of Juventus, I say, and stuff like that. But again, I think it'd be great if symbolically they showed that Muslims, Christians, Jewish people, people of other faiths, or all faiths, or no faiths, people from different political backgrounds as well, perhaps even, and just general racial or ethnic backgrounds, even African politicians or businesses, or even sovereign wealth funds, entire nations, as well as Arabic and Asian, could invest in the club legally, as I often say, and perhaps there could be a way that they could, in return for giving to charity and doing a lot of good work, making peace projects and all that, maybe FIFA could allow them to bypass financial fair play, but as long as they do so in a legal manner and like an agreed manner, and again, agreeing to give a lot to charity, because I know a lot of people complain in football there's so much money involved and corruption. So again, if Juventus tackle those sorts of things and use that money for good as well as winning trophies, as well as paying players well, they could hopefully have those rights and to bypass financial fair play. And also, I'd love for them to be tax exempt, as I say, as well as other Italian teams and Celtic as well, in return for doing a lot of good work. Number 9, I dream to read any poetry or see any art or choreography or writing or anything else on Juventus, or any of its history, or people who support Juventus. I'd love to read your comments, and like, it could be like architects for Juventus, designers for Juventus, and all sorts of things like that. As I often say, I'd love to see what neurodiverse people can do for Juventus. And again, I hope that if Juventus supports diversity, I hope that people from diverse backgrounds and that kind of thing will return the favour and support Juventus. I'm sorry if I do waffle. I know this video has gone on quite long, but I'll finish off this part 1 on, again, developing youth, as many youth facilities and opportunities for young people to play and practice their skills as possible. And as ever, I'd love to read your comments. Sorry, I do repeat myself a lot. And I am out. Peace and love.